All right, good afternoon. I will start off with a trip announcement. The Secretary General will be traveling to Paris over the weekend. On Sunday, he will take part in their ceremony for Armistice Day, which this year marks the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. This afternoon, he will also give the keynote speech at the that afternoon on Sunday, November 11th. He will also give the keynote speech at the first Paris Peace Forum on Multilateralism, which is being hosted by the French President Emmanuel Macron. On Monday, the Secretary General will visit the headquarters of UNESCO to attend for the first time. And to give to speak at the opening of the Internet Governance Forum, which is taking place there. While in Paris, the Secretary General will have bilateral meetings with President Macron, as well as Chancellor Angela Merkel, who is also attending the Peace Forum, and he may have other bilaterals, which we'll be able to confirm later. And the Secretary General will be flying back to New York on Monday afternoon. And Secretary General is currently meeting with his Chief Executive Board. This afternoon, the CEB members are to discuss the common UN system position on drug policy in preparation for the 2019 ministerial meeting in Vienna. They will also hear by video conference from the World Health Organization Director General, as well as the Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, who are both on the ground in the DRC to assess the UN system's response to the latest Ebola outbreak. And as I mentioned, they will be speaking, both Dr. Tedros and Mr. Lacroix will be speaking, in fact, from Beni in North Kivu, which is the epicenter of the current Ebola outbreak. Today they met with local authorities, UN agencies, civil society, and first responders in Beni to assess the situation on the ground and to discuss ways to strengthen the response. As of today, there are 311 reported cases of Ebola. The Director General and the head of peacekeeping praised the responders' courage, determination, and emphasized the numerous challenges, including security, particularly for women. Mr. Lacroix said that health workers in the affected zones do crucial work amidst a difficult security environment, and that the UN mission in the country, MONUSCO, is actively supporting the government to improve security. Dr. Tedros, the head of the World Health Organization, added that the work being done around the clock to end Ebola made him proud and confident that the outbreak would be defeated despite the numerous challenges. Tomorrow, they will travel to Goma and then to Kinshasa, where they are expected to speak to the media. And we continue to be deeply concerned by the escalating conflict in Yemen. Fighting has now continued around the outskirts of Hodeidah city in the last 24 hours. About 2,100 people have reportedly fled their homes in the area close to the fighting. Humanitarian agencies have consistently warned that protracted fighting inside Hodeidah city or any incident that interrupted port operations could set off a humanitarian catastrophe. Conflict has also escalated along other fronts in Yemen, including southern Hodeidah Governorate, Hajjah and Sada Governorates. There have been initial reports of civilian casualties in some areas, but figures are not currently available. As you'll recall, the Secretary General last Friday outlined urgent steps required to decrease the risk of famine in Yemen, including, of course, the need for the violence to stop immediately. The United Nations also continues to call on all parties to the conflict to do everything possible to respect international humanitarian law, including the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. And from the Central African Republic, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that tensions remain high in Batafongo town in Ouam prefecture, where an internally displaced site was set on fire due to clashes and retaliation by opposing armed groups on 31st of October and 1st of November. Our colleagues from the peacekeeping mission there tell us they've increased patrolling as sporadic shooting continues between the anti-Balaka and ex-Seleka fighters. The fire resulted in the displacement of around 30,000 people, the vast majority of whom were internally displaced people who lost everything. Humanitarian workers remain in Batafongo and continue their operations, but the response is being undermined by persisting insecurity and threats against humanitarians. Access to the only hospital in the area is extremely limited to some parts of the population. International NGO partners have established mobile clinics and have increased water to 30,000 people, malaria treatment, enriched food, and providing psychosocial services to people impacted by the violence. And our colleagues at the Food and Agriculture Organization tell us that 1 in 5 deaths are associated with poor quality diet, which is now a greater public health threat than malaria, tuberculosis, and measles. That's according to a new policy brief backed by the Food and Agriculture Organization, which stresses the need for reducing food loss and waste to improve access to nutritious and healthy food, with nutrient-rich food such as fruits, vegetables, dairy products, meat, and seafood highly perishable. 1/3 of all food produced for human consumption never reaches the consumer's plate. The FAO Director General, Jose Graziano da Silva, said that to tackle all forms of malnutrition and promote healthy diets, we need to put in place food systems that increase the availability, affordability, and consumption of fresh, nutrient-rich food for everyone. More information on the FAO website. And in Mexico, the UN Children's Fund has warned that many children traveling with the migrant caravan are showing signs of anguish, psychosocial distress. In certain cases, children are expressing fear of violence or separation from their families, while other children are finding it difficult to engage in play, recreational activities, organized activities by UNICEF staff on the ground. The agencies and its partners are quickly scaling up support for psychosocial intervention to reach the children in need. Psychosocial support can help lower the impact on children of having to abandon their homes and endure grueling travel conditions. Masood.
Thank you, Stéphane. In this, you just earlier gave a statement on Yemen. The thing is, and Secretary General over the last week also made an appeal for this, so all the warring parties to come to agreement. It seems as though the Saudi-led coalition, Saudis and the UAE, have increased their attacks in Yemen, killing the children more than anything else, which is absolutely horrendous. Has the Secretary General been able to talk to them?
Well,
they don't pay heed.
Contacts continue to be had both on the ground through our humanitarian partners who are doing their best on the issue of deconflicting, and of course on the political track with contacts between Martin Griffiths and all the parties involved. It's absolutely critical that the fighting stops. The suffering of the civilian continues to grow, and as you well noted, we've seen an intensification of the fighting. Mr. Abadi.
Yes, that's okay, but the thing is, the attacks by the Saudis coalition seems to be increasing. Is it sort of a tactic?
Well, that's a question you have to ask them.
I'm just asking, is Secretary General not been able to prevail upon the Saudis?
We have had contacts at numerous levels. Mr. Abadi.
Thank you, Stéphane. King Mohammed VI of Morocco has made an important proposal to the Algerian government, namely the establishment of a mechanism to be commonly defined to discuss any issue on the table, national, bilateral, or international. What does the Secretary General think of this proposal?
The Secretary General has always been very supportive of increased dialogue between Algeria and Morocco. And I think we just on the broader declarations by His Majesty, I also wanted to say that the Secretary General welcomes the support extended by His Majesty, the King of Morocco, in relation to the efforts made by the Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Urs Kohler, towards the resumption of the talks. He commends the parties and neighbors for responding positively to the invitation of Mr. Kohler for an initial roundtable to be held in Geneva on the 5th and 6th of December. The Secretary General expresses his hope that this initial roundtable will be the beginning of a process that will lead to a solution to this long-standing conflict. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Stéphane. Any Secretary General's comments on the outcome of elections in the United States?
No, sir. I mean, no specific comment. Yes.
Thank you, Stéphane. First, a technical question. Sometimes you have a statement and you read it, and sometimes you have a statement, but you don't read it unless asked. Mm-hmm. I can give you 3 examples. One,
I know how it works, yeah.
Yeah, how it works. I want to know, in another case, when Masoud asked you about the 3 Palestinian children killed by Israeli air raid, you pulled out the statement and you read it. Why you didn't read it from the beginning and highlight it, because it's an important issue. And just the question of my colleague Abadi, also the same. So I need if you have explanation, when do you read it first, and when you don't read it unless asked?
You know, the way this briefing is put together is a bit of a secret sauce, so to speak. There is decisions are made to issue statements, proactive statements on issues. Other times we know we will be asked for a reaction, and we're ready. Other times we are being asked for reaction and we're not ready, and then we get language in the past. It's decisions that are made and on how we want to express our position on certain issues.
That has nothing to do with the significance of the development.
No, it does not. Okay. Yes.
Now my question is, the new elected Brazilian president, Bolsonaro, he stated that he would be moving the Brazilian embassy to Jerusalem. Have any effort made to make the UN position vis-à-vis this move is in violation of UN resolutions?
Well, a couple of things. First, the president-elect of Brazil is the president-elect of Brazil. He doesn't take office, as far as I know, until January 1st. So it is not in our habit to comment on things that have yet to happen, or statements of things that may happen or may not happen in the future. The Secretary General's position on issues that need on the need to avoid unilateral moves when it comes to the Middle East peace process has been stated by himself directly and by others, and that remains unchanged. Let's go back, Zach.
Thanks, Stéphane. Regarding Cameroon. I saw the statement yesterday regarding the abduction of some students and the statement from the Secretary General. Any updates on that, first of all?
Well, we've seen the press reports that the students have been freed, and we're waiting for some sort of confirmation from but if that is in fact the case, we very much welcome it, and we would hope that from what we've seen from the press reports, that their two teachers, the two adults who were with them, should also be released. Hold on, Masoud. Let's go to people who haven't asked yet.
From the travel announcement that you read before, I understand that the Secretary General is not going to the Palermo conference on Libya on Monday and Tuesday. Is there any specific reason for that? And what kind of hopes and expectation has he on the conference on Libya?
No, he will not be. He will not be going to the meeting. He will obviously be but we very much hope, and we very much welcome these meetings that are there to really support the work that has been being done by the United Nations in support of the people of Libya. Masoud.
Two questions. Stéphane, on this Rohingya thing, it is being said that still the conditions are not good enough for the Rohingya refugees to return. Do you have any update on that?
No.
They're still not...
No change in that.
And the other question that I wanted to ask you was about this Asia Bibi, and that one statement that you gave the other day. Italy is saying that it wants to help her get out of Pakistan to save her life. How do you see the efforts of the Italian government?
I don't have the details of the efforts of the Italian government, but obviously we'll check with the country team there in Pakistan to see if we have anything. Yes, sir.
Yes, there was a leaked document recently came to the press that Saudi Arabia sent a letter to the UN officials to highlight their humanitarian support in Yemen, the $950 million. And that document now is being public knowledge. Can you confirm that the UN has received a letter from Saudi Arabia emphasizing to the highlighting of this?
I mean, with due respect, this came up a couple of times earlier, and there was an extensive back and forth which you can refer to. Thank you very much.